Well, for more on the Colombian elections and what's next for the country, I'm joined by Juan Gonzalez. He's an Associate Vice President for the Cohen Group and a former Deputy U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Western Hemisphere Affairs. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
So let's start with a look at the economy that Ivan Duque is inheriting. How does that match up with his economic plan to stimulate the economy?
He has actually developed an entire campaign on the innovation economy, what he calls the orange economy. Right now, you have a Colombia that needs to diversify its sources of income. It has probably depends 20% of its economy depends on commodities, on oil specifically. So it suffered significantly during the drop in oil prices. That's been a tendency throughout most of Latin America. And what countries and economies like Colombia need to do, they need to get into services. They need to actually figure out how to get into the next level of the innovation economy. And Duque's campaign plan, which I think benefited a lot from his time at the Inter-American Development Bank, I've seen him talk about it. He has a very concrete idea to actually upgrade the nation's infrastructure. The orange economy concept that he talks about is about using Colombia's cultural heritage, fashion, architecture, indigenous tradition as something that actually can bring benefit to the country. I think there's a statistic that it was last year that the Colombian economy, 4% of it was the orange economy. And so that's something that can actually expand significantly.
And so when you look at this pro-business candidate that we have in Duque, and he's pledging to essentially shake up Colombia's model, what sort of things could we be looking at? Where would he start?
Well, I think the most important place to start is the most underdeveloped areas that essentially led to the internal armed conflict. Colombia right now, its ports and its infrastructure favors an export-focused economy. But you also have roughly 75% of Colombia's geography that is left untouched because it's been too dangerous. So what's there? Once you actually have roads that go into that area, once you actually invest into the rural communities, once you actually provide incentives for businesses to really try to help develop that orange economy, I think a lot of important things will happen for Colombia. Colombia has continued to grow. Imagine if the rest of the country were available to explore and to innovate. I think that holds huge potential for the country.
And let's look at some of the challenges also. We know that he pledged to tackle inequality, corruption, improve security, and also increase educational opportunities. How much of a difference could that make from where Colombia is now to where it could be?
Well, education is the #1 priority, I think, throughout Latin America, and Colombia gets it. What a lot of academics have been talking about the impending end of Latin America's demographic dividend, meaning that the young population is less than the older population. And so countries in Latin America like Mexico and Colombia are running out of time. They have to execute some very important reforms, embrace digitization, invest significantly in education so that people can compete. The problem in places like Colombia is sometimes firms can't find the talent necessary, and so you'll get people that come from the outside. So it's something that they definitely need to invest in.
And what do you think Duque's election will do for the investment landscape in Colombia?
Well, I think he needs to send an important message. I think his victory alone, he got 54% of the vote. There was a historic population that actually came out and participated. I think it was between 53 and 54% of the population, which is very large. And he has pro-business bona fides. What he needs to show now is, I think people are looking to see, #1, is he going to be an independent president? He's certainly a protege of former President Álvaro Uribe, who now is the head of the Senate in Colombia. He needs to show that he has a cabinet that is going to be formed by all sides, even people that perhaps opposed him. On the other side, I think people are going to ask what he's going to do about the peace process. Is he going to walk away from it? Because I think if Colombia returns to internal conflict with the FARC guerrillas, it'll be discouraging to business. And so while he may approach changes that Colombians want, I think he should make very clear that he's committed to peace. Right. Because a lot of the clients that I represent, I have a lot of firms that are investing in Colombia, they're waiting to see what his next step is. And I think he has to be very clear about a pro-business stance going forward.
All right, thank you so much. Good to have you on. Juan Gonzalez there of the Cohen Group.